I'm the library director, and I would like to welcome everybody to our Hamtramck Public Library. We have a great program, as you know, of course. I would like to introduce our new librarian, not so new, our new librarian who is the arranger of this program. So thank you very much, Katrina, and welcome everybody.
Hello everyone. We're about to ask Wayne to come on out, but just before he does that, I would like to welcome you officially to this event here, and thank you, and you've noticed some papers on your chairs. I'll explain that as well. So welcome, and thank you for coming to this evening's performance. The staff at the Hamtramck Public Library are so pleased that you could join us, and we're so confident that you'll enjoy your time spent with Wayne Kramer this evening. It's an honor for me to introduce Mr. Wayne Kramer to you all, who is visiting our community as part of the Library of Michigan's 2019 Michigan Notable Books Author Tour. Every year, the Michigan Notable Books program chooses 20 outstanding fiction and nonfiction books written about Michigan or by a Michigan author and published the previous year. I encourage you to check out the complete 2019 list printed on the bookmarks. You'll see those at the front desk. Hopefully you'll enjoy reading some of those. And then for more information on the Notable Books program and to review the prior year's list, you can go to michigan.gov/notablebooks and check all that out. This year, several authors will visit 50 libraries throughout the state during April, May, and June. Hamtramck Public Library was fortunate to have been selected as a tour stop this year. So excited. These free to the public presentations are brought to you by the Library of Michigan, Michigan Department of Education, Michigan Humanities, the Library of Michigan Foundation, Meyer, and the Michigan Center for the Book. Our media sponsors are City Pulse, Q Advertising, and Genera Photography. We want to thank these sponsors for making this program possible through their generous support. And then locally, a special thanks to Olomon Cafe for providing the refreshments and Planet Ann for partnering with us to ensure such an enjoyable event. The Michigan Humanities Council has asked that you fill out the survey that was placed on your chairs. Please let them know that you enjoyed today's performance. You can fill it out, leave it on the chair, or there's a basket at the circulation desk along with some pencils. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Wayne Kramer to you all.
Wow, thank you so much. I want to give you a brief outline of how I hope the next hour might go. I'm going to read a little bit and talk a little bit and sing a couple songs and read a little bit and talk a little bit and sing another song. And then we're going to switch the format to a Q&A because I like talking with people a lot more than I like talking at people. I also wanted to just say here in the beginning that I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a small tumor on the side of my jaw. They took it out. I endured radiation treatment. They tell me I have a 90% chance of a complete recovery, but it's left me with a little speech impediment. They tell me this will go away, that the nerve will actually regenerate, that controls this muscle here, and my speech will go back to normal, which I would appreciate. So if you hear me, if I'm reading or trying to sing and it sounds like you'll you'll know why. It's not just a new soul effect I tried to master. So, this is such a trip being in the Hamtramck library. I love the library. I grew up in Detroit public libraries. I grew up on the west side and down by Michigan 31st, and I was at all the libraries all the time. I thought they were the greatest place for a kid to go that had a question, and I had lots of questions. And Hamtramck itself, man, the city is just, I mean, I was always like amazed when I came to Hamtramck because they manicured the alleys. People's houses were so clean and so precise, and their lawns, I was just like, wow, the attention to detail, it was way beyond me. I'm going to read the prologue from the hard stuff because I think it gets us off on the right foot. The Belle Isle police riot of April 30, 1967 was the first riot I ever played. It was on my birthday. I was 19 years old. The hippie movement had arrived in Detroit that spring, and since the MC5 was the band on the cutting edge of the counterculture, it was only natural that we'd play the Motor City's first Love In. Belle Isle is a delightful city park in the middle of the Detroit River. The day had progressed peacefully enough with pot smoking and acid tripping and freaks of all stripes carrying on. When we took the stage, which was in a gazebo near a wooded area of the park, it was the peak of the afternoon and everything was going great. The crowd was pure Detroit, black, white, friends, strangers, and they all moved in close to see the MC5. I resorted to my technique of brushing the crowd back by looking the other way and then crashing into them, as if I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't know what I was doing. It worked like a charm. Make some room, motherfuckers, I'm doing a show here. Everyone was having fun, and I enjoyed myself immensely. The sun went down, and the Detroit Police Department decided we weren't clearing out quick enough. There was a small confrontation with some drunken outlaw bikers, and the police threw down on them. The bikers fought back, and the crowd backed away from the mayhem. Police reinforcements arrived and started bum rushing everyone off of Belle Isle. We were just getting ready to leave as the cops got into position. They'd probably been rehearsing their lockstep and were overjoyed to have a chance to use it. Not that anyone here posed a threat. This wasn't a cadre of highly trained Marxist revolutionaries. We were a bunch of regular folks, stoned out weirdos, and Budweiser buzzed factory rats simply enjoying a free concert. At first it was a game. When the police line came forward, everyone shrieked and laughed and ran away. But when the first heads got busted, the humor abruptly dissipated. The cops' violence was outrageously out of proportion to the situation. They seemed to enjoy their total dominance over the crowd. They were sadistic. Wanting to save our gear from being smashed, I hopped into an open bed pickup truck with some of the instruments. Michael and Fred piled in with me, and we drove slowly toward the only bridge off the island where, to our surprise, a police roadblock had stopped traffic. The sun had gone down, and it was now dark. It was then that the mounted police arrived. The mounted cops took galloping starts on people who were running away and clubbed them like they were playing polo. Giddy up, whack, pow, score! Women were screaming, blood was gushing, men were cursing at the police. The trees were backlit by police headlights and spotlights, and everywhere I looked, another horrific scene was going down like some unholy Chinese shadow puppet show. After traffic started backing up on the bridge, the police finally let us off the island. We finally got back to our headquarters at the artist's workshop and started putting out calls for help. I made inquiries into hospitals and jails as to the whereabouts of my sister Kathy and our other missing friends. I was outraged at what had just gone down. The line had been crossed. Never again would I believe the myth that the police were there to protect and serve. Later that summer, this became even clearer when the Detroit Police Department enacted one of the worst outbreaks of police violence in American history. And it wasn't black people killing white people any more than it was black people killing cops. This was the police who were doing the killing. And that was pretty early on in the MC5's arc. You know, in nature, all things that are conceived and birthed and nourished, that grow and flower and wither and die, that natural cycle, everything in nature goes through that, including rock bands. And the MC5's arc was kind of based on that, but we had some extenuating circumstances that caused our story to be different. Most bands don't have the FBI tapping their phones, the local police department harassing them when they walk out the door, or the federal government coming down on them with the full force that the government can exert. You know, we came up in Lincoln Park. That's where I met Rob and Fred and Dennis. We all went to Lincoln Park High School. I wanted to start a band. Started asking around at school, did anyone know any kids that played instruments that might want to be in a band with me? Someone said, yeah, there's a kid, Fred Smith, he plays bongos. Cool. Band needs a bongo player. He met the other guys. Tyner, I hung out with his younger brother because we liked drag racing. And I was intrigued with his older brother. His name was Bob Duminer. And he lived in the basement of his parents' house in Lincoln Park. And he'd sit down there and eat monk's bread and paint and listen to jazz and learn Esperanto. He was a beatnik. And I used to try to convince him how cool it was to be in a rock band, you know, because the lights would be up there and you're doing your dance steps, you know, like we used to do, and you're doing steps, and you're sweating, and the kids are dancing, and it's fantastic. And you say, oh no, man, that's some cornball shit. You gotta listen to Cannonball Adderley, man. You gotta listen to jazz. Okay, I'll give that a try, but this rock, you gotta check this out, this is fun. And then one day, I ran into him at the White Castle, and he was a little drunk, and his hair was like kind of sticking out, and he had a harmonica, and he was playing a harmonica. He said, hey, you still doing that band thing? I said, oh yeah, man, you should check us out, we're getting good. Yeah, I might come over, where do you rehearse? And I told him. So he had discovered the Rolling Stones. And the Rolling Stones were playing the kind of music that he had championed for years before it was hip, before most white teenagers knew about these artists. Certainly Cannonball Adderley and the rest of the jazz establishment, but Down and Dirty Blues, you know, Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker. All of a sudden these white British kids are doing it and doing it pretty well. They were a pretty good band, Rolling Stones. And he said, yeah, okay, the rock thing is cool. Count me in. I'm in now. So we worked real hard. You know, the MC5 did not create the interest, the shockwave that came out of Detroit that hit the rest of the world when they heard the MC5 and of course later the Stooges and some of the other Detroit bands. But that shockwave came because we worked hard. You know, here in Detroit, we have a concept that we all share, that there's nobility in hard labor. That it's noble to work hard, that if we want to accomplish anything, we have to work hard. We have to step up. We know that here. I say these kinds of things in other parts of the country and they go, huh? I thought you had to know somebody. I thought your papa got you that good gig. You know? But that's what we did. We applied that in the MC5. We spent $10,000 20,000, 30,000 hours in a rehearsal studio, learning to play our instruments. And the music we developed was light years ahead of what was happening in the rock scene of the day. We were into simultaneous improvisation, free improvisation. This, you know, the world actually still hasn't caught up with that. But I wanted to read a section here in the early days, just to show you, to give you a sense of who these guys were in the MC5. I was quadruply blessed to know these guys and be able to be in a band with them and create the work that we did. So, Miner decided to reinvent himself. From now on, he'd be known as Robin Tyner. Tyner was the name of his favorite jazz piano player, McCoy Tyner. He also said I should change my name to Kramer. I liked the idea. Kramer was more mainstream, less clunky than Canvas. To me, Kramer sounded more like an American consumer product, like cheese or vacuum cleaners. Yes, sir, these new Kramer vacuums are top of the line. But there was a deeper reason I went with the name change. This was the perfect way for me to finally get back at my spineless father for running out on us. He would never know that his son had become a famous musician because I would have a different name. To hell with him. Now he could never share in my glory. Later, when I turned 17, I went to court and legally changed my name to Kramer. Now he would never know. Revenge was mine. Tyner also added a fictional Bartholomew to Fred's name, Frederick Bartholomew Smith. It had a nice Euro ring to it. Later, Fred revised it to Fred Sonic Smith. New drummer, Dennis Tomich, was christened Mike Dennis Machine Gun Thompson. And for a minute, Michael Davis became Mick Davies. Tyner was a very creative dude. Not long after the name change, I smoked my first joint in the parking lot before one of our record hop gigs. I knew Rob and Michael smoked pot, and I wanted to try it. From what I understood, there was no hangover like with liquor, and my mother wouldn't be able to smell it on my breath. We were waiting in the car for showtime, and they broke out a joint. The reefer messed up my sense of time, and I was obsessively checking my watch every couple minutes. The absurdity of my preoccupation with being on time was cracking us up. Everything took on a hysterical note. We were laughing our asses off. After that, I was sold on marijuana. Since we're at this point, we're talking about the MC5. I'm going to sing an MC5 song. Yeah. Employment is still an issue in America and here in Detroit. I'm going to bring full employment to this room right now, right here. I'm hiring you all as backing vocalists. This is non-union, work for hire. Okay, so we need to rehearse a little bit. Here's your part. I'll sing high school, and you go hey, hey, hey. And I'll say high school, and you go hey, hey, hey. Rah, rah, rah. I'm telling you, these lyrics are sophisticated. And then the final one is high school, sis boomba. Better get out of their way. Let's rehearse the whole thing once. High school. Hey, hey, hey.
I think that's right.
No? No. Sis boomba. Hey, hey, hey. Better get out of the way. Right?
Rah, 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 sis boomba, hey, hey, hey.
Rah, 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 sis boomba. High school. Rah, rah, rah. High school. Sis boomba. High school. Hey, hey, hey. You better get out of their way. They only want a little excitement. Get a little out of hand. They only want to shake it up, baby, and rock to the favorite bands, 'cause they're going to high school. Rah, rah, rah. High school. Sis boomba. High school. Hey, hey, hey. You better get out of their way. Kids want a little action. The kids want a little fun. Kids all have to get their kicks before the evening comes, 'cause they're going to high school. Rah, rah, rah. High school. High school. Cause we're going to high school. Rah, rah, rah. High school. Sis boomba. High school. Hey, hey, hey. You better get out of their way. Yeah! Could meet me in the tour bus after the game. So, coming up when we did, this in the 60s, this time of great acrimony in America. America was split down the dinner table. Our older generation couldn't understand why we couldn't just let things be. Why we couldn't just go along with the program. I mean, after all, you have an electric guitar, Wayne. So yeah, and I want to say something with this electric guitar. Because I didn't agree with the way things were going. It just, you know, they said one thing and they did another thing. They talked about justice, but they didn't deliver justice. They talked about peace and understanding, and they didn't live by that. We couldn't justify the war in Vietnam. We couldn't justify the way people of color were disenfranchised in America. We didn't like oppressive drug laws. We thought police brutality was intolerable, should not even be a factor in life in the world. That the earth was being destroyed by pollutants. We had a lot of disagreements. And it took the form of a consciousness. You know, we started to see the same patterns everywhere. A political consciousness. There's a political source of these problems. There's solutions, but the solutions start with us. The solutions start here on the ground with round the way people. The solutions start here. It starts from the people up, not from the top down. But we wanted to attack the head, and so we said a lot of things, we did a lot of things, and one thing that we did that was a terrible mistake, which is to embrace violence as a political strategy. We just didn't think it through all the way. Once you use the symbol of the gun, or the bomb, or the knife, or the beating, torture, you can't tell how this is going to turn out. You can't control where this all leads. For many of our contemporaries in the Black Panther Party, it led to death squads of American police officers murdering Black Panthers across the country. For me in the MC5, it just got us kicked out of the music business, blackballed, shunned. It was a position we took, and it was wrong. Someone blew up the CIA office in Ann Arbor. I did not plant the bomb. I do not know who planted any bombs. I didn't know then who planted any bombs. I don't know today who planted any bombs. I won't know tomorrow who planted any bombs. But the feds indicted us, the White Panther Party. We formed the White Panther Party to give us a vehicle to express our frustration. A way to say, you know, this can't continue. There has to be change. We went to court. We were charged with John Sinclair, a couple other Panthers. We're charged with the conspiracy to damage government property. And the judge, the great Damon Keith here in District Court, Detroit Eastern District of Michigan, said, yes, that's fine. Where are the warrants for the wiretaps? And the lawyer said, the government's lawyer said, we don't have to give you a warrant. This is on presidential orders of domestic security. And the judge said, doesn't work that way. Get out of my courtroom. Threw the case out. You have to present a warrant signed by a judge to tap one's phones. It's in the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Very simply stated. The government appealed the case to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati. The Court of Appeals agreed with the White Panthers. Yeah, you have to show us the wiretaps or you got no case. They appealed the case to the United States Supreme Court, highest court in the land. Our attorney, the great labor lawyer Arthur Conoy, argued in court, Your Honor, Your Honors, if a sitting president could order wiretaps with no warrant, he could, who knows, bug his political rivals. Never knowing it was happening up the street as he spoke. Supreme Court decisions are released on a Monday. We know that Judge Rehnquist signed the original memo in the Justice Department authorizing warrantless wiretaps. He recused himself from ruling on the case, but he was tight with Richard Nixon, and my guess is he slipped the word to Nixon that if he's doing anything funky, you better clean it up, because on Monday morning, when the court's decision hits the news, it'll be against the law. On the Saturday night before the release, the plumbers were caught removing the bugs from the Democratic headquarters in the Watergate apartment building. Because of this case, and I'll tell you, because of our case, you know, the government had groups all across the country in their crosshairs. There was a systematic program instituted by the FBI called COINTELPRO, designed to crush domestic dissent. So if you were part of an anti-war group, they were going to mess with you, mess with you, mess with you. If you were part of a civil rights group, they're going to mess with you. If they came after the Black Panther Party, they came after us, the White Panthers. The reason they came after us, we were nobodies in the real world. We're a bunch of lunatic poets in a rock band from Detroit. We weren't the Beatles with millions and millions of kids around the world adoring us, or the Rolling Stones. We were some unknown band, knucklehead, pot-smoking revolutionaries in Detroit. They thought it'd be easy. Well, we fortunately had the Constitution on our side, and for one bright and shining moment, there was justice. And all the other groups got all their charges dropped too. Our case was thrown out of court. All the other groups had their cases thrown out of court as well. So there was some good spill on that. But it makes me wonder about the world we live in today, and what is the government doing under the heading national security? I mean, can they still get away with this? You know, the five self-destructed, we were crushed under the blow of poverty, deep, relentless poverty, and rejection by the music industry made it impossible for us to get bookings. And, you know, we got to eat. We're human beings. So a lot of intra-band conflict developed. You know, when there's no money, things can get hairy. And we decided to call it a day. And I personally just lost it. I lost it when I lost the MP5. The band had been my life since I was 13 years old, 14 years old. I wanted to do what I was doing in the MP5. And I didn't have anything to hold me up. I didn't have any principles. I didn't have any guidance. It wasn't that my mother didn't raise a good man or tried to teach me what the difference between right and wrong was, but I threw all that away. You know, I had talent. Talent's not enough. I thought talent was all I needed. Talent's not enough. You need more than talent to thrive and survive in the world. I lost my way and I went down a bad road. I went down a road where doing wrong was rewarded. In the kind of Detroit underworld that I lived in those days, you know, bad dude white boys, dope house rip-off men, drug dealers, armed robbers, those kinds of guys. I enjoyed their company. I thought this was great. And when I did wrong, they admired me for it. They got me cool points. So I discovered doing wrong was a way to get attention too. And then I thought I was going to be a big-time drug dealer, and discovered that as a gangster, I am a total and utter failure. As a tough guy, I'm a great guitar player. I thought I was going to finance a new band by dealing drugs, but the truth was I was an addict, and any money I made dealing drugs went in my arm. I did so badly at being a drug dealer that I generated the interest of the DEA, who ultimately built a case on me that climaxed with the weather that day was awful. Dark gray skies, rain pouring down in torrents so heavy at times you couldn't see the street from the front windows. Tony and Joe showed up on time, and Joe asked if he could look around the apartment just to be safe. No problem. I had my shotgun in the bedroom, but I said, hey, we're all cool there, right? Tim arrived with the sample, and Tony approved it. Tim went out to get the main package from our supplier, who was waiting at a restaurant around the corner. 11 ounces of 98% pure Colombian cocaine. Tim returned, then Joe went down to his car to get the money. Joe returned with a briefcase. Tony and Joe, the two big Italians at my kitchen table, tried to open the briefcase, but it wouldn't open. They were getting frantic. No, man, give it to me. No, I'll open it. No, I got it, give it to me. They were struggling with each other and starting to raise their voices. Time started to slow down. Something was seriously wrong. I looked back down the stairs at my apartment's front door and saw that it had been left open. I rationalized this as their being in a hurry to leave once we did the deal. I looked back at Tony and Joe grappling with the briefcase. I heard footsteps and men screaming. They were running up the stairs with guns drawn. Put your hands up, motherfuckers. Nobody move, you will be shot. A mob of bug-eyed white guys in windbreakers and bulletproof vests came pounding up. I turned around and Tony was standing in front of me holding a .45 automatic at my stomach. I looked down at the barrel opening and thought, damn, that's going to make a big hole. My next thought was, this is a ripoff, we're all going to die. My apartment was flooded with guys hollering, where are the guns? I realized they were police and immediately felt much better. I also noticed that my apartment stunk to high heaven with bodily gases. The agents were so stressed that they farted my place up. At that point, I didn't have any fear at all. After you've been busted a few times, you get to know the drill. But man, it smelled bad. I started to make a joke, but then thought better of it. They cuffed us and broke out the DEA badges. Another lucky break. I was relieved to see those federal badges. I knew no matter what happened, I wouldn't be going to Jacktown, America's largest walled penitentiary. At the time, Jackson State Prison had over 3,000 men locked up in medieval conditions. It was well known to be a gladiator school. Tony turned to my partner and said, Tim, you're going to tell me where your connection is right now. Tim wasn't a big guy, but he could be as tough as he needed to be. And he said, hell no. No, Tony said. You're going to tell me right now, or else I'm going to take you into the bedroom and beat you so bad you'll piss and shit blood for a month. But you won't have a mark on you tomorrow in court. I know how to do it, and I like it. Tim faltered at this. But after a moment's consideration, he said, hey guys, I'm really sorry, but I can't tell you. Tony looked him in the eye and said, all right, let's go to jail. The agents had a good laugh and carted us down to their van. On the way downtown to the federal building, Bob Dunn, the special agent in charge, pulled me aside. Wayne, there won't be anything in the newspapers about this tomorrow. And you might want to just keep this under wraps from your friends. There might come a point in time where you find yourself between a rock and a hard place, and I might want to make a deal with you. Thanks, Bob. That resulted in me getting a federal prison sentence from Judge Robert Damasio in federal court in Detroit. And he gave me 4 years with a 3-year special parole term afterwards. I was shipped down to Milan and then down to Lexington, Kentucky, and served out just over half of that time. I was a model prisoner and qualified for early parole. I came out and tried my best to readjust to life in the world. Prison terms take you out of the world as you know it and put you in another world. Not such a nice world. And I started to keep track of prison in general. If I see the story in the paper or something, I'd read it. I started to notice that when I was in prison in 1975 in America, there were 350,000 people in prison as well, state and local. Federal and state. 350,000 people. And every few months, I'd see another story about the prison population going up. And it'd go up, and it'd go up, and it'd go up, and it'd go up, first by tens of thousands, then by hundreds of thousands, then by millions, to today we have 2.3 million of our fellows in prison under direct state control. And finally, the activist in me had to take action. You know, I suffer from cynicism. It's my big problem. It's not so much the Republicans or the capitalists. It's my own cynicism. It's my own complacency that I have to challenge, that I have to militantly oppose. If I can militantly oppose my complacency, then maybe I can make a difference. Maybe I could do something. I can't do everything, but I can do something. I can do one thing. Well, what could I do? I'm a musician. I always enjoyed it when people came in to the prison that I was serving a sentence in and played and performed in their bands. Maybe I could do that. So I started doing concerts in prisons. And then at one concert event, I brought Billy Bragg with me. Billy, the wonderful British troubadour and activist. And Billy had Jail Guitar Doors written on his guitar. And I said, what's that all about? He said, oh, it's an old Clash B-side. You ever heard it? I said, heard it? Bill, they wrote the song about me. He said, what do you mean? I said, what are the lyrics? Right. Let me tell you about wine and its deals of cocaine. Oh, bloody fucking hell, it is about you. He went on to explain he had launched an initiative, independent initiative in England, to take guitars into prisons and provide them to prisoners for tools for rehabilitation. I said, man, that's a brilliant idea. I think that you do that in Britain, you're English, this is great, but I'm an American, I'm also an ex-convict, I'm a musician. I think I could take this on for this country. This fits me like a glove. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And he said, good, because I was just about to task you with it. You're the only one that can do it, because you've been inside, you know how the system works, and that's true. So 10 years ago, we launched Jail Guitar Doors USA. Today, our instruments are in over 130 American prisons. And we have songwriting workshop programming in Rikers Island, at the Cook County Jail in Chicago, in the LA County Jail, the San Diego County Jail, the Austin, Texas County Jail, and on 10 California mainline prison yards, and in the entire California Youth Authority, the Massachusetts Youth Authority. And the work is ongoing. The work is good. And I want to tell you, we have a program here in Michigan, in Detroit. One of our teachers is here tonight, Tino. That's a good brother. He's stepped up. Him and a handful of other really wonderful cats here have been running our programs. We had a successful run at the Ryan Reentry Center, and we're looking for a couple new spots right now. If you see them around and you want to help us out, if this sounds like something that you could take part in, you can go to our website, jailguitardoors.org, and learn everything about who we are, what we do, how we do it, where we do it. And if you want to help, we'll talk with you about how to do that. The idea of working in prisons and using the amazing transformative power of creativity to change people for the better. What we give them is a way to tell their story, to express complex memories and feelings in a non-confrontational way. A way to collaborate, to learn how to collaborate with other people, to learn how to listen to what other people say. When you play music with someone and you write a song with them, you've got to talk to them. And if you talk to each other, you find out you have way more in common than you have in different. in our workshops, we don't recognize gang affiliations, we don't recognize race barriers, we don't recognize class barriers, there's no intimidation, there's no threats. We treat each other with dignity and respect. In our workshops, we're all artists in this room, and the men love that. They love that they can come in a room and do something fun and creative without prison politics entering the picture. We tell them the politics stay out on the yard. What gotcha, thank you. I started to realize, geez, there's a whole bunch of music about prison. You know, prisoners have been going to, musicians have been going to prison forever, as long as there's been prisons. Musicians have populated them. So I started learning prison music. I thought, oh, great, I could use this in the, you know, when I go in and we're talking about songwriting. Until I discovered that the last thing prisoners want to hear is prison music. You know, they want to hear, you know, Led Zeppelin and, you know, all the bands that are bands in the world. You know, like I'm often some other idea about how things are, and, you know, they just want to listen to music they know and like. But I did find this one song. I went over to Ireland to do a jail guitar doors event in Dublin in the Mountjoy maximum security prison. It was built in 1890, still a functioning maximum security. And all my friends kept saying, Wayne, that's great, you're going over there where they have the old triangle. And I said, man, that's good, thanks, man. What's the old triangle? I had no idea. So I got there, and the old triangle is still there. It's in the central hallway of the prison, and it's a big iron triangle. And what it was is, in the old days, they would clang it in the morning for the prisoners to get up and eat. I mean, to get up out of their bunk and clean up. And then they clang it at lunchtime for the prisoners to come to eat, and then they would clang it every time they executed a prisoner. Maybe that's something we could, they don't execute people in Ireland anymore. Maybe that's something we should consider seriously in our sense of the justice. So the great Irish playwright Brendan Behan served a sentence at Mountjoy, and while he was there he wrote a play, and in that play was the song, There's a hungry feeling come o'er me stealing, and the mice are reeling in my prison cell, and the old triangle goes jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Up early in the morning, when the screw starts a-ballin', get up, you bouties, and clean up your cell. And the old triangle goes jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. All the lads were sleeping, Humpy Gussie was a-creeping, and I lay here weeping for my old gal Sal. And the old triangle goes jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Up in the female prison there are 75 women, and amongst them I wish I did dwell. Then the old triangle could go jingle jangle I want to thank you all for attending. This is really terrific, and I look forward to meeting up with everyone next door, and we can talk in a more relaxed and natural way. Darren, I want to thank you for making your place available.
Anytime.
So let's try this Q&A thing. Let me tell you, there's nothing that I consciously remember that I will not talk about. So there's no holds barred. Any question you have, I'll do my damnedest to give you a good answer for it. So who would like to start off? Yes, sir.
You know, every time I see a video of the MC5 when they're playing, I know you guys are such good performers, and you're just busting your ass to perform for the crowd and stuff. Where does that come from, like Motown, or where did you guys get that kind of style?
I have a massive ego.
Question, please. Can you
What?
repeat the question?
Oh, yeah. The question was, every time he sees the band, he's struck with this enormous, the power of the performance, that the band is working so hard to entertain the crowd. Where did that come from? That was, if I'm close, yeah. Well, first and foremost, because we wanted to just turn the audience out. We wanted them to leave sanctified, drenched, fulfilled, having been part of something completely outside of the ordinary.
Like soul music,
Yeah.
religion?
So a great component of it came from the black church. I used to listen to a show called Gospel Sunrise that was recorded, broadcast live from churches around Detroit every Sunday. Like the C.L. Franklin's church was one, and I'd get up early on Sunday mornings to listen to it, and I just was struck with the fervor and the instant connection between the preacher and the audience. Like they were on the same heartbeat. They were right. I said, man, that's a show. Whether you're down with the theology or not, the dynamic of what's happened, the human experience of it was compelling. So there was that, and then on top of that, of course, I love great R&B performing artists. I mean, R&B artists were the only people that really could dance. James Brown, Jackie Wilson, and Chuck Berry. I mean, they understood how dance can be incorporated in your music way better than most white artists. They don't have the feel for it. But those were the people I went to. That's where I found, and then even further, like to Sun Ra, and the idea of, losing the beat and the key and all that, stretching the music out further, all that stuff. I grabbed it wherever I could. If I heard it a preacher or in a conversation, if I saw somebody with a particular move, I mean, I stole all my moves. I lifted them all. Thanks. Yes, sir.
We're going to bring Darren in as well to moderate.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, let him help you.
I'm here to repeat questions and maybe ask a couple. Hi, everybody. I'm Darren. I'm here representing Planet Ant. Grateful to be a part of this. Give it up for Wayne Kramer again. So, one thing I wanted to ask, and then we'll go back to everybody, is I enjoy to read a lot, and rock and roll memoirs are not normally my favorite because they kind of feel the glamorizing and the romanticizing. It's kind of feels a little fake. I kind of went into reading this thinking maybe it would be something like that, and it totally is not. It is not that at all, everyone. It definitely includes the MC5 story, but it starts so far before and goes so far after. It's really vulnerable and searching and fearless, and I want to thank you for that. A simple question I have, the hard stuff, the title. Also the title of record, on Epitaph in 94. Why return to that?
Couldn't think of anything better. tried a lot of different titles, and that one just seemed to work. And plus, I have an affinity for naming things after songs, so it seemed to work. Did I get this question here? You were gonna-
I was just going to ask, okay, so you get into the Wayback Machine and go to a hot summer night at the Grandy in 1968, and it is like you're in a tornado up on stage of sound and lights and everything. And I'm just guessing that the monitor situation and the PA system was not what it is now. How did you all, with all the movement and the moving lights and the volume and whatever else in the crowd and the energy, how did you stay so tight and so energized and be able to stay in sync so well?
Wow.
As the recordings reflect.
Art is subjective. Because I know that I'm a heavy does it, and I tend to awfulize, but I remember when we weren't so tight. You raise a good question about the sound and PA systems. Yeah, there were no monitors in those days. I almost never heard Tyner sing. I never heard Tyner sing really well until we played the Fillmore East. They had real monitors. I was Jesus, listen. Wow, man, I can hear everything. This is great. Yeah, the sound, we're in a different world now. Today it's an entirely different. You know, we did it on sheer enthusiasm, sheer love of what we were doing, and almost obsessive work ethic to push harder and go farther, try to push it one step beyond. Wherever the line was, I want to go past that.
Wow. Thank you.
A follow-up on that one too, with the DKT MC5 days, you comment a little about having attacked the in-ear monitors and click tracks and being able to add horn charts and all this stuff and pushing the boundaries. What was the thought behind that? What was your goal with that?
I was so knocked out that people would want to come and see us. That people would actually pay to come and see me and Dennis and Michael perform. That it was just, how could you pass that up? I mean, something I never thought could ever happen was possible, and I wanted for Dennis and Michael to experience the recognition for the hard work they put in all the years in the band. They're in the rhythm section and they don't get maybe as much attention as us guys up in front, but they worked hard. We all gave everything we had to the band, and so I wanted them to be able to come out on tour and play, Reading or Leeds, which we did, and see 20, 30,000 kids singing MC5 songs. We were never that popular back in the day. This was incredible, and I was glad that they got to participate in that. It was hard, Sometimes old resentments sustain themselves for decades, but I was glad that we could do it. Yeah, it was cool.
That's wonderful. Is there right here?
Hi, Travis. Pleasure. I love what you're doing. Have you ever, in your career with the Five or otherwise, ever played a gig or been on the same bill with Terry Reid? It's kind of a two-part question. Have you ever met him?
No, but I saw him sing maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Yeah, at the NAMM show.
What was that?
It's a musical instrument manufacturers convention in Anaheim, California. It's a huge convention hall, and all the people that make gear go there every year, and then the store owners come and they pick the guitars they want to buy for next year. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And artists perform at it. And I saw this guy get on stage, and I thought, gee, somebody asked that man if he's okay. Does he need help? I mean, could I call 911? And he got on the mic and he started singing his ass off. And then someone said, "That's Terry Reid." I went, I mean, I'm just being honest. That was my reaction.
I just didn't what he looks like.
In my memory, he was this beautiful young, beautiful young man. And this guy up on stage was like, whoa. Miles, years were rough on him.
Part two, what did you guys do to create the Grandy Ballroom? You referenced in the book that you scared them terribly somehow.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Sure.
Ginger Baker has always acted tough, so I want to know what the Detroit boys did.
Well, there was a couple.
Please, no, don't hold back.
Here's the first part. They came to Detroit. They were very pumped up. Their star was rising. They were being accoladed. All the press was on there. This is the greatest thing that ever had. Sliced bread and the cream. And they came to Detroit, and the place was packed. And I'm sure they figured this is all for us. Yes, because we're cream. And this opening band on the show, us. We'd planned something a little special that night, because we would do these theatrical events to make the gig more than just a rock band playing songs. And in this one, we were going to protest violence in America. And what we were going to do is we were going to burn the American flag, and then at the end of Black to Calm, at the end of the show, Tyler would be standing here, and an assassin would come out from backstage and boom, and shoot him in the face, and blood would fly. We'd pull everybody off stage, and that would have been our statement. Well, Russ Gibb got wind of this and said, "You're not burning any flags in the Grandy Ballroom." So we tore the flag up, and then when the moment came, the assassin ran out on stage and put the gun up to Tyner, and click, click. The gun didn't fire, and then we just kind of left the stage. And poor Cream have no idea what's going on. They got guns out there, and the guy in the flag, and what are we doing? And of course, we played pretty strong, and this was our house, this was our crowd. Now they're a little intimidated, they got to go out and play. And Jack Bruce made the mistake of wandering off into our dressing room while Eric Clapton was playing his 30-minute blues solo. And he's standing there having a cigarette. And Fred Smith walks up to him and says, "Hey, Jack, how come you only have one guitar player in your band?" Jack says, "Oh, well, we find that Eric is quite capable of, covering all the guitar parts." And Fred said, "Hey, Jack, you had 2 guitar parts on your record. You need another guitar player in your band, Jack." And Jack left the room. He went and told Russ Gibb that Russ had an insolent band member. That's what we did to Cream. How you doing on time? Okay, yeah? Yes, sir.
So, as you know, our entire cast corridor has changed greatly. And I read your book, and I'd never read the riots from your point of view. It was telling. It was like you were there on the ground in a way that hasn't been reported. There's been a special on PBS, I don't know if others have seen it, but it's talking to old residents of Cass Corridor, and they kind of talk about the flavor and all of the personalities that live on Cass and how that's disappearing with the gentrification, with LCA and everything that's going on there. I was wondering if, since you live there, if you could offer some stories, what life is like there that was not in your book, something of personal experience, or just sort of what it felt like to be down there.
Felt great because there was a sense of community, the community of rockers and freaks and hippies, and the mix with the students, and it's surrounded by what we call the ghetto. So like rents were cheap, and if you looked different than other people, nobody cared. And if you played, there it is. If you played music loud at night, people didn't much care. It was just there was a bohemian feeling about it, and it felt good. It felt like a relatively safe place to be a weirdo, to be a hippie, to have long hair, that you could walk around that neighborhood and nobody assault you for your haircut. Those kinds of things happen. Michael Davis went up to Port Austin. He'd met a girl up there, and a bunch of thugs jumped him and cut his hair off, and almost cut his ear off at the same time. And he had his ear sewn back on. That kind of stuff was not unusual. Pascoria was a great neighborhood, great neighborhood. Yes, all the way in the back. Yes, sir.
Is Patty Smith still around? Is Patty still around?
Couldn't tell you. Patty Smith?
Yeah.
I assume she did. I haven't heard that she died or anything.
She's got a show coming up, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
To not be upset about Patty.
I guess she's still around.
I have another question. So, I want to pull the conversation a tiny bit back to Jail Guitar Doors. In the book, there's a line that really stuck out to me, which is that prison, the loss of time is punishment, and that criminals go to prison as punishment, not to be punished.
Correct.
And that explosion in my mind, because I hadn't heard it phrased that way. Additionally, in the Jail Guitar Doors, I believe it was Billy saying, this isn't a gift, this is a tool, use it.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. Can you speak a little bit on the state of prisons in general today,
Sure.
in your opinion?
Sure.
On that?
You know, people have this idea that the 2.3 million people in prison all have tattooed eyeballs, and it says, you know, I hate you on their forehead, and they'll all stab you if you look at them sideways. This is a myth that television promotes. In the prisons I served time in, I never experienced walking into a new prison and have tiers of thugs look at me like I was lunch. That never happened. And I don't know anyone that served time that ever had that experience. It's a complete fantasy that Hollywood creates. What you find in people in prison is just like you find out here. I mean, this could be a group of prisoners as easily as it could not. There are women in prison, there are old people in prison, there are young people in prison. And they made a mistake. Many of these mistakes are political in its core, in the drug war efforts or tough on crime efforts. And we're going through kind of turning the Titanic right now. There's energy and money being thrown at prison reform. But most of this money is going to what we call the nons, the three nons. Non-serious offenders, non-sexual offenders, non-violent offenders. The nons, non-violent drug offenders like that, they want to throw money at rehabilitation programs, repurposing justice dollars on smart on crime and restorative justice. This is all nice and good to the good. It should happen. More should happen. But what they're not talking about is the other prisoners, the ones they call the real bad prisoners, the serious prisoners, the violent prisoners. If you are holding a gun and somebody and you rob a liquor store, I will be charged with a violent offense just for having my gun. The money and the effort is a political ploy. It's a bait and switch because it's coming from the Koch brothers. Koch brothers are the two greatest polluters in American history. They've been fined more than any group or corporation in the history of our country for polluting. The business is oil and gasoline pipelines and that kind of stuff. And they're terrible scoundrels. And they're unbelievably wealthy, and they back hard-right political candidates. They're libertarians. And they say this This is a big government. We're against big government. We want smaller government. So let's close these prisons down and let's change one little line of text in the white-collar law legislation. And the one line they want to change is the one line that affects them. And it's a line that says, I didn't know this was wrong when I did it. Today, that's not a defense. If you dump 800 billion gallons of oil into a lake, you can't say, well, I didn't know it was wrong. They will convict you for it. But if they get their way, if they can get to the right congressman, if they can catch the right moment and they get this through, they'll win. Here's the other bad news. All the prison cells that they clean out by moving out the nonviolent people and the non-sex offenders and the drug offenders, all those empty cells, they will fill with immigrants. They will fill with immigrants. People that just want to come and have a life in America. They will fill these prisons with immigrants, and immigrants have no rights. You and I go to prison, we got lots of rights. We got habeas corpus, we got a right to an attorney, we got a right to have our family notified if something happens to us. We have the right to talk to the press. Immigrants have nothing. They have no rights. They can ship an immigrant to a different prison in a different state and nobody will ever know what happened to him. We have rights to health care, even in prison. Immigrants have no right to health care in prison. So that's the scary part of where we're at in corrections in America today.
One more? Okay, one more quick one. Right.
Hi, my name is Denise, and we had a record store for 31 years in this area.
Right on!
And Russ Gibb was a good friend of ours. He always came for everything. But who are you ever starstruck by any musician?
Oh.
I mean, that you met, that you were like in awe.
Plenty, because I have many great heroes in music. But you gotta watch that with your heroes. One time, it was at the Ann Arbor Jazz and Blues Festival. And the Charlie Mingus Big Band was performing with Jimmy Garrison on bass. Jimmy Garrison's a bass player from the John Coltrane Quartet, and we idolized that band, that quartet. And we thought like they were cosmic, you know, and all they did is pray and practice and pray and practice. And they were just spiritual beings, and you know, the music was so far out, and you had to be so committed. And and then someone said, "Hey Wayne, that's Jimmy Garrison over there." And I went over. Wow, Mr. Garrison, man, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a huge fan of your work, man. Well, this is a big thrill for me. And he said, "Yeah, baby, where's the wine?" My hero. I can't blame the guy for looking for the wine, you know. That's straight up. He's being straight up with me. Oh, okay. All right. If anyone's going east tonight, Charlie is a sweetheart of a man in the back. He's elderly and might need some help getting home. If you want to give him a ride home, that'd be cool. And we're going to continue next door. I tell you to come on over. We'll bring some shirts, and you can drink over there, and we can hang out for a while. We can talk some more. Otherwise, thank you all so much for going all the way out of your way.